listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
What is up? Thanks for tuning in and checking out my show, Straight to Video. Alright, I say this a lot, but this was a cool one for me. It's no secret to anyone that knows me or listens to this show on a regular basis that I'm a big fan of horror movies and have a particular soft spot for the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Now, back in the 80s, I saw the first couple of films on video and loved them. Great films which still hold up to this day. But then in the summer of 1987, like many of my biggest memories, I was visiting family in the USA that summer and I saw the trailer for part 3 of the series, Dream Warriors. I think it had been released in the cinema earlier that year and was getting set for the video release, and up until that point I'd not heard a thing about it, but the trailer drew me in totally differently to the other films. This one seemed almost like a fantasy action horror movie, really larger than life, and it had an almost cartoon vibe to it. I got to see the film and everything changed from that point. Not only was the film amazing with the story and characters, but the villain, Freddy Krueger, became something totally different, something totally next level. He became a megastar, as weird as that may sound, and there was also the bonus of the music video for the theme tune by Dokken tagged onto the video cassette too. Yet another avenue into what will become my future obsession for hard rock. So from that point on, it was all Elm Street. For the next 12 months, I obsessed over the series, and once I knew that a new film would be out that summer, then things went into overdrive for 13-year-old Lainey. I devoured every photo that Fangoria teased us until once again, back in the US for my summer vacation, I would get to see my first Elm Street film in the cinema. But wait, shit. The listing in the press says it's released a couple of days after I leave for home. Damn it, I was crushed. But as luck would have it, either the magazine listing was wrong or they bumped the release day and made it a week earlier. So somewhere around August 19th, 1988, I managed to somehow convince my stepmom and sister to take me to the Pemberton Mall in Vicksburg, Mississippi to see A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. This was the MTV Freddy movie. Amazing visuals, again amazing characters, and as always a killer soundtrack. It was the film I've been waiting for, and to this day I still love it. What was cool though was the very clever story which was brought to life by everyone involved, so it brings me great pleasure to chat with the star of the film, Lisa Wilcox, who played the character of Alice Johnson, the Dream Master, in the movie. A character who goes on a massive journey during this film, from timid and shy schoolgirl to ass-kicking dream warrior by the end of the film. Lisa would also reprise the role for the movie's follow-up, The Dream Child, a year later, and I think became the only person to survive 2 Elm Street movies. Lisa's story is a great one, and we discuss it all from growing up in Missouri to moving out to California and almost by accident falling into the movie world. We talk lots of Elm Street obviously, but we also chat about working with Mark Hamill and some of their other experiences during the 80s and 90s in a movie industry which is very different to how it operates today. First up though, please show some love and support for our friends Dead Skull Coffee. I got me a cup right in front of me as we speak, and I can't champion these guys enough. Just as an incentive though for their great rock and roll coffee, you can grab 15% off your order by simply adding the promo code STV on checkout when you order from deadskullcoffee.co.uk, and be sure to check out their new Thunder Blend from Danny Bose & Co, which is available now. And also, if you're a regular listener to this show and would like to get a little more involved, then please consider checking out our Patreon page over at patreon.com/STVpod, where you can get behind the scenes access, a bonus podcast, we do online video chats and Q&As, and also some exclusive merch you won't find anywhere else. Support tiers start at just £2 a month, and I'd love to have you on board over there with all the other cool folk. Okay, I've gone on way too long, but anytime you get me in Elm Street mode, then it is gonna happen. If you're not familiar with the series, then I'd love to hear your thoughts if you check them out with fresh eyes today, but I'm sure this chat with Lisa Wilcox will be a great introduction. Lisa is incredibly busy to this day, and her new film Mystery Spot has just been shown at London's Fright Fest, and she also has another new horror movie, The Bloody Man, which sees her reunite with her Elm Street co-star Tuesday night. For all the up-to-date news, then check out Lisa's website, lisaewilcox.com, or you can find her on Instagram at @TheLisaWilcox. So okay, without further ado, I hope you enjoy this as we dive into my straight-to-video chat with the wonderful Lisa Wilcox.
again. I'm all alone, it feels like the end. He walks with me while I sleep. It's like a heart attack on a one-way street. I can't sleep tonight, 'cause I gotta run, gotta hide, and I'm running from this nightmare. I turn around but there's no one there. I'm running from this nightmare, running from this nightmare.
So you need to call your friends and tell them Lisa Wilcox said you got to go see Mystery Squad. Anyway, so okay, I'm done interviewing you.
Okay,
now you can interview me.
Let's dive in. You grew up in Missouri, which is like right in middle America.
Yes.
Back then, how far away did somewhere like California and Hollywood feel to you growing up? Did it seem like another world?
Another world. It seemed like it may as well have been the North Pole. Very organic growing up, Missouri. Lakes and rivers and trees and animals, and it was a wonderful, wonderful place to grow up.
Was it quite like a small town environment? Because I think you moved around quite a lot within Missouri before you actually came out to California, right?
Yes, we lived I was born in Columbia, small town, but there's the big university, Mizzou is there. And then we moved to St. Louis. So we were always in the suburbs. And then we lived in a little town called Washington, about an hour outside of St. Louis. And that was my favorite because my parents built a house on a lake. Like the family room was 2 stories high, 3 walls of glass. It was actually in some designer magazines and whatnot, because like in the winter when it would snow, you had all the trees covered with snow, the lake, frozen snow, deer walking on the iced lake. It was so incredibly beautiful. And it had the whole forest around. So my sister and I, we got to just run around and explore. And there was this whole field of sunflowers. And when the sunflowers were blooming, butterflies as big as your hand, over this. I mean, I can't even it was magical.
How long did you stay there?
We were only there about 2 years. And then my dad was offered an amazing job in California, in Newport Beach. So Southern California. So we moved to Southern California. I was about 14 years old.
That must have been a huge thing for you. How did that affect friendships and stuff? If you were moving around quite a bit at school, did that kind of mess with friendships? Then you do that massive cross country.
Yes. And we did move a fair amount. I think more it was because my dad, he worked hard and so he's making more money. So we would move to a better area. My parents got married. They eloped. They had a trailer. Okay. And my dad worked at Sears, Roebuck, you know what I mean? Selling sewing machines, but he went to school to become a stockbroker, so every move was more about, moving up the ladder as it were. Right. But yeah, it was definitely hard. I mean, I'd make friends and then have to make friends again. And it was definitely difficult, as a child, but I don't blame my family, my dad at all. I mean, he had success, but I think that's why too, I became more of an introvert, it was like, and that's why I read books and that was my family.
Some people have said that music becomes their friends and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, right. So books and characters in the books, that's what became my best friend, definitely.
It was cool for me to learn that you've always had an interest in horror, whether it be films or books as well, going right back to your younger years.
Yeah.
How much of a film lover was you, as in like going to the cinema or renting movies?
We didn't go to the movies that often. I remember the first movie I ever saw was 101 Dalmatians, the Disney movie, but we did go to the theater quite a bit, even in New York. My mother was a stewardess back in the days when you said stewardess instead of flight attendant in the 60s. Now, she only did that for about a year because back then you couldn't be married and be a stewardess.
Really?
Yeah. So, but she worked for American Airlines in a different capacity, meaning she and other flight attendants that weren't stewardesses anymore, whatever, did presentations at hotels, promoting American Airlines. And for doing that, like 16 hours a month or something, we got passes to travel for free anywhere American Airlines flew. So, and if you wanted to fly first class, it was $5. So I have to say my first traveling experience was first class.
Very nice. You started high.
But anyway, we had friends in New York and we would go fly to New York and we would go see Broadway shows. And even in St. Louis, my parents had an annual pass for the Muni Opera. So I saw Oklahoma, I saw Evita, I saw all kinds of plays at a very young age, which just, I was enraptured.
Yeah, because that's going to not have the same effect, probably an even big effect than it did to people such as me watching all these big Hollywood films. You're seeing these plays being acted out in one of the greatest environments to see plays.
There's just nothing like a live performance. I don't know, it's kind of interesting because I had no idea as a child, I didn't want to be an actress. I was just more enthralled with performances and characters and that kind of thing. But it's interesting, when I was in fourth grade, which I was about 10, my first novel I ever read was Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. And from then on, I've always been fascinated by vampires and horror and the paranormal. I would check out books from the library about, ghost stories. And oh my gosh, I was just completely, ever since I was a little tyke.
How does that work today with YouTube wormholes? If you're into the paranormal, you could be lost for days.
Lost for days. I love it. I've had experiences. I actually had an experience with a poltergeist. I completely believe in the supernatural, that there are things that we simply cannot explain, including UFOs and other beings from other planets. And who are we to think we're the only living being in the universe? Yeah, think again.
Brilliant. So you've seen all these theatre films, but one of your first roads into acting was in the role of the wonderfully named, let me get this right, Ms. Randazzo, right? In a theatre production of MASH.
Yes.
All right.
Very good. You did your research. Yeah, that was in Missouri. I was in 9th grade. And again, I was very introverted person. However, I did love like an English class, and the teacher would say, who wants to read this paragraph? Or, we're reading poetry or whatever. I actually did raise my hand. I like to read out loud. So anyway, I auditioned for this high school play, MASH. Ms. Randazzo, got the roles, 2 scenes. It was comic relief, really. I'm playing the secretary and there's the boss, and I'm, the red lipstick and pencil skirt and high heels and all that. I'm like the sexy stereotype secretary. Think of, the 1950s, 60s, and I'm to go and sit and cross my legs and sit on the desk of the boss. Now that would be, the boss would be put in jail. So anyway, that's what it, and I'm going to take my notes and as he talks. So yeah, it was opening night and the play was just for the weekend. And there was like 400 people in the auditorium. And the scene took place in the proscenium in front of the curtain, because behind the curtain, they're making massive scenery changes and all that. So I'm walking, and you know what footlights are. Footlights, they're up or they're down. Up, they're on for lighting, or they can be down and locked, flat. Okay, so they're flat, but one of them was not locked. And I walk on it, it opens up, and my foot goes down into the cave dwelling of the footlight. I'm literally center stage. I'm wearing these strappy high heels that are now dangling off my ankle. I'm literally trapped, my steno pad's gone flying and this and that. The guy who's playing my boss, we start improvising. I didn't even know what improv was until that moment. And he's like, oh, you had a little too much to drink there, Ms. Randazzo. And anyway, the audience is laughing. They're thinking this is part of the scene. Anyway, behind the curtain, they realize, oh, something's going on. So the guy who's playing Hawkeye, who was my boyfriend actually, opens the curtain, helps to untangle my shoe and myself from the footlight, and proceeded to do the scene. So that was my introduction to acting. Now, it was quite thrilling, I have to say. And on Monday at school, all the kids now knew me because of this whole thing that happened. And then shortly thereafter, we moved to California. But nope, I didn't want to be an actress. I was going to be a doctor. That was what I wanted to do.
Did that change people's perception of you in the show? Like, oh, this is the girl who was on stage. But had they seen you in that kind of light before?
No, because I was, again, a very introverted person. Really, I was. However, I had this sort of instinct. I don't know. I think what it was is that I loved characters in books so much and loved characters in the theater I had seen that maybe, deep down inside, I did want to explore that. And as it turned out, I did. So I was prodded
yes.
into it.
So moving to California, you say it was Newport Beach you moved to?
Yeah. Irvine.
Is that kind of south of Hollywood?
Yes. Yeah. About an hour. Well, in those days, it was about an hour away from Los Angeles. Nowadays, it's 2 hours away because of traffic. And then when we moved to Orange County, so my intention, I wanted to go into the medical field. My great-grandfather was a doctor who actually died during influenza in the 1900s. My grandma was 3 years old when he passed away, and he got what they call the Spanish flu, kind of like what our COVID is now. And then my grandmother, his daughter, became an RN nurse, and she worked at the Veterans Hospital. So I really wanted to go into that. That was my plan. And I've always been fascinated by science and whatnot too. But anyway, so yeah, we moved and made a friend, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to this audition in Newport Beach at Buddy Ebsen's Playhouse." Buddy Ebsen is an actor from the 40s and 50s. And anyway, he was a very big actor and still alive then in the 80s. And he had a playhouse there. So I went with my friend to his audition, and I'm just sitting there watching in the theater, the audition's happening. And I keep getting this tap on my shoulder, the producer of this play, and her name was Jane Nye, and she kept saying, "You're auditioning, right?" I'm like, "Oh, no. I'm just here with my friend. He's auditioning. Hire him." Anyway, she was very persistent, so I auditioned, and I got the lead role in Lanford Wilson's play, The Hot L, Baltimore.
Firstly, did your friend get the gig as well?
He did not.
Oh, shit. Right.
He did not. But Kelly McGillis, the actress from Top Gun, Kelly McGillis, her mother directed this play. Boy, 900 lines. I learned how to memorize. She was amazing to me. But anyway, the play received awards. I got awards and whatnot. But from then on, but mind you, I'm still in high school. I'm a sophomore in high school at this point. But I did equity waiver plays, straight A's in high school, every night rehearsals, play after play after play, and then went on to UCLA, theater arts degree.
Just that chance moment was the big fork in the road for you.
Yeah. I think it was divine. It was just meant to be, I guess.
What was your family's reaction to that? If you were kind of on this medical path, then all of a sudden, no, I'm going to be an actor.
No, that's a great question. They completely supported my theatrics and everything, but they're like, "You need to get a college degree though, Lisa." I was fine. I liked school, so UCLA, applied, got accepted, and they didn't care what degree I got, whatever it was in, as long as I got a degree, college degree.
Okay.
And I did.
Was it while you were at UCLA you got your first film role in the movie Gimme an F in 1984? Was that during your college time?
I took a quarter off from college to do this featured extra role in Gimme an F. Now, when I got the part, though, the film was called The Big Cheer. Okay. Later on, they changed it to Gimme an F. But here's what's really funny. On my resume, it was The Big Cheer, but casting directors would misread it as The Big Chill, which was a huge movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So they thought I was in The Big Chill. I think actually that helped me get auditions because
that's a happy accident, right?
I know that for a fact. But anyway, yeah, later down the line, they changed it to Gimme an F. It's a classic TNA, known as Tits and Ass, TNA 80s film. There's no tits and no ass on me, whatever that I do. But it's 4 cheerleading squads that are competing, right? And there's the Ducks. There's, each 4 teams have their own name, the Ducks, and they're like the really sweet and innocent Amish-like. I was part of the cheerleading team. We were called the Demons, and we wore black, red, tight. We smoked. We were like the cool chicks, right? So it's kind of funny looking back that I was part of the Demons cheerleading squad and then went on to do Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. During all this time, you'd done some theatre work and now you'd done a film role. Where were your sights set? Was it set on film and TV, or was theatre a goal for you?
Just acting in general. I mean, my whole background and training is theater. So it was my first experience like on a movie set, which was very fascinating. You learn who the director is sleeping with. You learn who the producer is. You learn all these actresses, their intentions. But I mean, it was definitely a learning experience. You also learn how much you have to wait around on set forever and ever and ever. And then you learn things like, if you take off your top, we'll pay you an extra $200, right? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And it was quite a learning experience, I have to say.
But that was like considered not acceptable back then, but to hear that now is just like, wow.
Wow, right? Oh no. And we're all like, yeah, we're 18 years old, but we're kids, I mean, we're kids. So it was pretty amazing, the manipulation that can happen. So did the role. I did not accept the $200. Playboy was actually coming around the set too and asking actresses as well as me to do a Playboy spread. I actually had a meeting with them, which was amazing. I mean, they had these posters, like 10 times the size of a poster, beautiful, of their Playboy covers and all over the hallways and this and that. It was absolutely amazing. And, looking back, I kind of wish I'd said yes.
Right.
But I was a Missouri girl, too shy. So I said no, but I did get offered. So, but anyway, but when I went back to college and stuff, I actually decided to change my major to anthropology. It was between anthropology or archaeology. Anyway, I changed it to anthropology. And then I realized it was going to take too long to do all the classes because I already done theater classes. I was going to graduate too late, blah, 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 blah. So I still wasn't completely invested in, I'm going to be an actress yet.
No, still hanging on. From then, you landed a lot of TV roles such as Hardcastle and McCormick, General Hospital, MacGyver. And then in 1988, New Line Cinema began the search for the role of Alice Johnson in A Nightmare on Elm Street 4. Do you remember how you heard about the role? Because I believe there was it 600 actresses who either went for the role or were put forward?
So through UCLA, and that's where agents and managers would go to recruit their new talent. They would go to plays. That's how it used to be done. Nowadays, it's be an influencer and then you'll get an agent or manager or whatever. It's so different now. But that was the traditional way. Be seen, be heard, and you get an agent and manager. So through my performances, I had an agent and a manager. And so right out of the gate of UCLA, it was about 4 weeks after I graduated, I booked a recurring role on General Hospital. So that was pretty awesome. So my manager submitted me for the role of Alice. Now, mind you, and if I had it in front of me, I'd show you, but you have to understand my headshot. I'm a virgin platinum blonde. I look like a cheerleader, a beauty queen, right? Makeup, the whole 9 yards.
All 1988 at that point.
All 1988. Think of 1988, exactly. All the makeup and the hair and all that. So my manager said, well, I submitted you for this lead role, because he would let me know what he was submitting me on or how I did an audition or I booked something or whatever. And he said, they're not going to read you. And I was like, dang, because I was already a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street, of course, since I was little, loved horror, paranormal, vampire, any of it. Anyway, about 2 weeks later, my manager calls me and says, okay, they can't find their Alice, so they're going through their reject pile. Hi. And you get to audition. I was thrilled. I got the script and read it, totally related to Alice in so many ways. I went in with no makeup and dirty hair. I wore my worst color.
You went method for that role.
I went totally method, but that's what we do. You read the character and you're like, is this someone who wears floral dresses or someone who just wears jeans that are ripped up or whatever? You dress your character. And on so many levels. So went in and I had a call back on a Friday. I was getting married that Sunday, 150 people attending the wedding, big wedding. And I was on my honeymoon when I learned that I got in the role.
Wow. You had to dye your hair for the actual shoot. A few weeks either way, that could have led to some very different wedding photos.
Indeed. I left my honeymoon early because the film, they needed to do some test shooting and whatnot. And that's when they asked me if I would dye my hair. I said, can we just put a rinse on it? So we did a rinse, but it had to be put on every day because obviously I get home from work and shower, whatever, and the rinse comes out. I may as well just have dyed it.
One thing that really sets the Elm Street movies apart from the other big slasher movies is the development and personalities of each of the characters. They're not just there to be victims, if you like, and it's not more evident than in Alice's character and the journey she goes on throughout the film, starting off shy and timid, then becoming this strong, powerful woman. Was that character pretty well fleshed out in the script? Because you said you totally related to it when you read it, or was you allowed to add some of your own experiences in there at all, or offer suggestions to the crew?
The script was quite brilliant, honestly. I mean, it was very fleshed out. The character arc of Alice just was written just beautifully. I love the parallel of, yes, as each friend dies, that Alice absorbs their strengths, also their weaknesses too. Mind you, like Kristen, she dies, but I start smoking because that was one thing that she did, right?
Little things like that were great.
And it's about the friendships, those that we love and their strengths and their weaknesses that make us whole, you know? So the script was amazing. For me as an actor, the challenge was to make it believable, this character arc, and that it was gradual. It didn't just go from, oh, shy girl to, oh, warrior woman, right? It was my job to make it believable. So what I actually did with the script, because obviously when you film, you don't film in order. You'll be doing scene 53 in the morning and then doing scene 1 in the afternoon. So in my script, I wrote for every single scene who had died by then. So I could gauge the level of strength that Alice had for each scene. So if it's, 3 deaths, then I'm pretty close to my warrior self. If only 1 has died, I'm still in my shyer self.
And it was back and forth like that all the time.
So that was, that's what I did. And I hope it was successful, that Alice's character didn't just out of nowhere become this warrior, that it was gradual.
How was the camaraderie between all of you on the set? Because as a viewer, it certainly felt like it was a fun gang. I don't know how it was between you all. You obviously still, a lot of you are still friends to this day.
We are all still so friends, and absolutely. I missed out because I was on my honeymoon. Well, also, I was the last one cast in the film. So Rennie Harlan had get-togethers and table reads and barbecues to get all the cast to know each other and feel comfortable. But I wasn't, he hadn't even been cast yet. And 2, when I was cast, I was in Hawaii. So I didn't get to have that bonding time. But once we started filming, yes, we definitely bonded. And still some of my very, very best friends, Toy Newkirk, Brooke Thies, Tuesday Night, Andras, Danny. I mean, we are super tight.
That's great. Really, really cool. And Robert Englund is a classically trained actor and obviously had to be in the Freddy makeup for long periods of time. Was he able to switch from Robert to Freddy easily, or did he keep out of the way between takes in his trailer, or was it just amusing to hang out with him in full makeup being himself?
He was totally Robert until the moment we were on set. He was so himself. But no, he knew how to get into Freddy's skin, as it were.
Just at the flick of a switch.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool.
We would be in the makeup trailer because, again, they're having to put this rinse on my hair every morning, which also meant 2 blow dryers on both sides of my head to dry it. It's very wet. It's not like you can towel dry your hair. It's a rinse. So it's dripping wet. It has to be dried. And then Robert, of course, had his 4 hours of makeup. Yeah. So we shared quite a bit of time in the makeup trailer.
Awesome. He must have told a different story every day. That guy seems to have a different story for everybody he meets at conventions.
He's amazing. All you have to do is just listen to Robert, and it's like you got a degree from Harvard. Yeah. Like, he's so smart, so knowledgeable, so entertaining. Yeah, he's amazing.
Wonderful. And for me, Part 4, The Dream Master, it's such a wonderful film in many ways. It became the MTV Freddy movie, but I love the way it looks. A lot of scenes, in particular the boiler room and church scenes, look so cool. The colours they use in it, it's almost quite theatrical in a way, how some of it looks. You could imagine it on a stage. How was it being on those sets? They were pretty spectacular.
They were spectacular. And Mick Strawn, who is the main production designer for Nightmare 4, and he's done many other things. He's actually written an amazing book called Behind the Screams. I highly recommend it if you can get your hands on it. I love how they converted the Crave Inn when they made it into spider webs and the old Alice scene and the pizza date and all that. Oh my gosh. It was just delicious. It was delicious to have that surrounding, because that only adds to an actor's environment and an actor's ability to emote or have more emotion because of the production value. We're
not talking Marvel movie where everything's fake. This was all there.
It's like so much CGI, green screen, all that. Oh, what a shame. What a shame. I mean, it's not to say I don't appreciate CGI. I totally do. I love all those movies that use CGI. Yeah. They're thrilling. They're amazing. But as an actor, to have the visceral, physical presence around you, it only adds to your performance and it only creates more levels. If you're just working in a green screen, you're not going to enjoy the accidents, the happy accidents that happen. Like, for instance, there's a scene, the Craven, before it's old, whatever, but I'm Alice, I'm in my waitress outfit and whatever scene we're doing. And I'm figuring out my busy work. What am I doing? Okay, so we've blocked it. I'm here. Oh, okay, there's silverware here. Okay, I'm going to be polishing silverware. This is how I'm going to start the scene. And I pick up forks and I'm polishing them. And, action hasn't been called quite yet or whatever. And then there's this amazing shadow happening on the wall of these forks that I'm holding. And like, Rennie, look at this. This is so cool. And he's like, and he says in his fabulous accent, no. And he takes the forks, picks up the knives. So by accident, a little layer has been added. And there's this quick shot of me holding the knives with this fabulous shadow on the wall, like Freddy's glove.
Brilliant.
So that's why production is so important.
I love stuff like that. And like I say, the effects in the film are stunning as well. I remember watching the making of documentaries so many times as a kid. How was Screaming Mad George to work with?
Oh my gosh. He, with his orange hair and his high-pitched voice, he is a character within a character within a character. He is awesome. And hopefully you get to interview Brooke Thies, because Brooke Thies, who turns into the cockroach, had much more experience with him than I did. But yeah, he's amazing. He lives in Japan now. And hopefully we're trying to put together a convention in Japan with him too.
Great stuff. Was you on the set with the giant Freddy torso with all the bodies inside? I know you're in those scenes, but I don't know if you was actually on the set. It was cut together. Was you in that?
I got to see it because, every day there's something going on and something to go, oh my gosh, look at that. Oh, it's a giant Freddy or whatever, It was like an amusement park. Let's just put it that way. But actually, I love that you bring that up because my mom was visiting set, right? And the giant Freddy had been erected. And I have this amazing picture of me and my mom next to the giant Freddy, which of course, with human bodies in it, it did topple over. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the thing was, 3 stories high.
Unreal. The franchise had already been successful, but I think part 4 was when things became totally mainstream. How was it for you seeing such an amazing response?
Oh my gosh. Well, Dream Warriors, Nightmare 3 was a huge, huge success, And again, I was already a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street and all of them. But yeah, for Nightmare 4 to explode, I don't know, it was amazing. It was surreal. It was really very surreal, actually. And I would get recognized, but by then my hair was kind of getting back to blonde and whatever. And so interesting enough, I read an article about facial recognition, and it's about actually that hairstyle and hair color are the most recognizable features that we as humans to recognize somebody. It's not your nose. It's not how you walk. It's not your height. It's your hair. So here I am getting back to blonde. I didn't get recognized that often. It was kind of funny. But when I did get recognized, they kind of look at you like you don't exist. It's like you're an inanimate object. I remember I was at a dress shop or something, and there were these 2 girls, and they're like, oh, that's Alice. And she's like, are you sure? Oh, yeah, that's Alice. Like, they talk like you don't exist. It's very weird.
Was you immediately signed up for part 5?
Yeah, pretty quickly. Yeah, very quickly. I didn't have to audition.
Obviously not.
I didn't have to audition. No, they're like, okay, Lisa, you want to play Alice again? Yes. But I had a meeting with Stephen Hopkins, the director. We met and there we went.
I love the look of part 5, and it's one that I was surprised how creative it is revisiting it sometime afterwards. Whilst I prefer Freddy's look in 3 and 4, I like how they made him look all tired because you'd beat the crap out of him basically by the time part 5 came around. And then the whole film has this kind of cool blue filter to it throughout the entire film. It's just a really great look.
It does. I love the opening scene of Nightmare 5 where it's Alice and Dan making love, but you don't actually see, it's so seductive. It's amazing. Stephen Hopkins is a brilliant artist. He actually did himself all of the storyboards. He's an amazing artist, and he's very, very was involved with the look feel of Nightmare 5, which was a completely different feeling than Nightmare 4. As you said, Nightmare 4 is like the MTV version. Nightmare 5 is much more dark and sultry.
Strangely, they fit together. It's weird. It's very clever. And following the Elm Street movies, you continue to take on some really varied roles, landing a part in Star Trek Next Generation, Bill and Ted series, but then later a role in the Brady Bunch Final Days movie. That must have been a cool challenge for you once again to play sort of two roles in one. You had the Florence Henderson and also a character of Carol Brady as well. So it's almost similar to the Alice thing, not an arc with this character, but you've got two roles within the same film.
Yes. And boy, was that amazing to be part of a Brady Bunch experience. Because I don't know about you, but I watched all the reruns of Brady Bunch. We grew up with that. And, Marsha. It's kind of funny too, actually. So I had an audition for the Brady Bunch, and it was in Venice by the beach, whatever. The door was locked and I'm walking around and I call my manager. This is when cell phones had just come out, but they were like the size of a brick. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, no one's here. And it turned out that it was all a big mix up. My audition was changed to the next day. My audition was supposed to be in Burbank, which is a whole other part of town. So I went to the audition. It was Friday and I was the last audition. Actually, it was like 5:00. I audition, I leave, I'm driving home. And my manager calls me and says, I don't know what you did in there, but you got the part. So I got to play, yes, Florence Henderson and Carol Brady in the behind the scenes, the Brady Bunch. And I have to tell you, what a blast. The makeup, the clothes, the Brady Bunch set. Oh my gosh, blew my mind. So much fun. You
did Star Trek, but you also have a Star Wars connection in that you got to work with Mark Hamill on one of the 4 Watchers movies, Watchers Reborn. How was that?
Oh my gosh.
A legend.
Well, you don't understand. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I mean, you don't understand. Okay. So when I got the role for Watchers Reborn, the 4th Watchers movie, which is the one closest related to the book,
right?
Dean Koontz. If y'all don't know Dean Koontz, oh my gosh, you got to read his books. He's amazing. And there's many films based on his books. So Watchers 4 is the best one. It's the one right on board. But anyway, literally, I like the night before to go to set and work with Mark Hamill. Are you kidding me? Luke Skywalker? Oh my God. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I was so nervous. It's like the first day of school. Oh my gosh. I'm like, oh my God. So anyway, and of course that day it was like my biggest scene, lots of dialogue, this and that. But I'm working with Mark Hamill. Oh my God. I was so fangirled out. You have no idea. Anyway, he is the nicest man. We got along famously. He loves The Simpsons. So he would bring Simpsons tapes to set and we would I'd hang out in his trailer and we'd watch the Simpsons episodes. And then he kindly invited me and my kids and my husband to his house. We swam in the pool, met his wife. They had 3 children and we were actually sitting on the patio chatting. And there was this bowl of cherries. And my youngest son, who was about 3 at the time, Ryan, he's eating the cherries. I look over, he's eating like half the bowl. Uh-oh. Guess what happens?
Oh, no. Projectile.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. He does.
Like the scene out of Stand By Me.
Yes. It was an Exorcist moment. Anyway, and Mark is like, no problem, no big deal. There's a hose right there on the patio. It's like he's done this 100 times because he has 3 kids of his own. So he's like hosing off my child's vomit. So, anyway, thank you, Mark. What
a legend. What a legend. After some time away from acting to raise your 2 boys, how was it returning to the industry? Because I would imagine, much like the music industry, the whole landscape had changed in film too, because things are moving so fast.
Yeah, it definitely had changed. And things like you now need to have your own website. It wasn't like social media is now, but Twitter was happening at the time. So you have to have a Twitter account. Oh, and you got to have a reel. It all was much more computerized. It was already going that direction, but I took a very long break. But slowly but surely, I got those things in order. And now, I'm working a lot.
The Stop the Nightmare featurette was really cool, which you did with all your old Elm Street buddies.
Oh, thank you. Cool. You saw that.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, that all came out of being bored and at home and then seeing all these things on YouTube that these comedians were doing. And I was inspired and like, oh my gosh, I have to do something. There's got to be something I can do. And it was like midnight getting ready for bed. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm just going to rewrite the lyrics of the Nightmare on Elm Street song. And there you go. And my friends in Chicago living in the suburbs had moms and kids, and, social distancing was done. So they did the filming part. I reached out to my cast members, including Mark Patton, who's in Mexico, right? So literally in 4 different states, 2 countries, whatever. And somehow we were able to make this happen.
Did the whole success of the Elm Street franchise on the convention circuit surprise you? Do you recall when you noticed that was starting to become a thing, or has Elm Street steadily followed you since the late 80s?
Well, the whole convention thing, to me, it was like, and I've added it up now, I've been doing conventions for 20 years. 20 years ago, it was brand new. There's a big convention, Chiller, that's in New Jersey. That was the first one I ever did. It blew me away. It just blew me away, and I was sitting next to the cast of Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory. Oh my gosh, again, fanning out, right? But the fact that this personal engagement with fans, with supporters, oh my gosh, it's incredibly fulfilling to hear their stories on how a character influenced their life and made an impact on their life in a positive way. It's the ultimate compliment, honestly, because as a performer, we do our job. We spend a lot of time memorizing lines and rehearsals and this and that. But the overall benefit definitely is the impact that you have on the world. Even
like younger generations discovering these films as well. What are we now? 30 years? That'll scare me.
Yeah. And now, I go and there's going to be grandma and then her daughter and then the grandkids. It's the generations. And somehow with, art and film, it's a way families bond. And it's awesome.
Your career has taken you on so many different roles and characters. Is there anything in particular or acting challenge you'd still like to take on? I think you've mentioned you like how Katie Seagal reinvented herself for Sons of Anarchy, that kind of thing. Is there anything you'd like to try?
Yeah, she's so awesome in Sons of Anarchy. Oh, she is so, and she's an amazing musician and a singer too. I mean, yeah, if I ever met her, I'd faint. What's kind of happening is as I've gotten older now, I'm getting roles that I get to play evil characters. So fun. So fun.
Excellent. So more of those to come then.
Yeah. It's an opportunity to wear an eye patch and be a character actor, essentially. No longer an ingenue, obviously. And yeah, I still play moms, whatever. But no, I'm getting the opportunity to really clutch and dig my fingernails into evil characters.
Many thanks to Lisa Wilcox for sharing some of her time with me to chat right here on the Straight to Video podcast. Great to hear that the Elm Street series is still very close to Lisa's heart, and her friendship with the cast from way back in the late 80s is still so strong to this day. I look forward to when Lisa can once again visit the UK convention circuit, and maybe you'll be at one of those shows too. In the meantime, though, be sure to stay up to date over at lisaewilcox.com, or you can find her on Instagram at @TheLisaWilcox. You can find over 100 episodes of this show along with straight-to-video music, videos and merch, and also our cover of the Tuesday night Elm Street 4 song Nightmare, which you heard during this episode. These are all over at www.stvpod.com. And if you can, please consider joining all the other people who have signed up to be part of the Straight to Video Patreon, which is at patreon.com/STVpod. I'd truly love to have you on board because it's a lot of fun. Alright, that is another fun episode in the bag. This show continues to surprise and humble me as to where it's going and who I'll chat to next, and that's all made possible by your great support, so thank you so much. So until we chat again, I hope you're all well and happy, and I look forward to speaking again real soon.